name's Nicole Khan. I work for the Operation Turtle Dove project, and we're here at Old Park today, which is a wonderful bit of habitat and home to precious turtle doves. Yeah, Old Park is a really special place. It's home to a whole host of different bird species, some of which become quite rare, and the one that we're particularly interested in is the turtle dove. So this is a species that's declined sadly by about 99% here in the UK. Not exclusively in the UK, that decline has been right across its European breeding range. But we know the reasons for that decline. Things like unsustainable levels of hunting have added to that, but we know here in the UK it's linked around habitat issues. So what makes Old Park so special is it has all the features that turtle doves need. So they've got three key requirements. They love really thick, dense scrub for nesting, the type of stuff that you can see behind me here. So where you've got blackthorn, hawthorn, you've got bramble, all kind of intertwined, creating this real thicket. That's where your turtle doves will be nesting. And that habitat is also good for things like nightingale as well. Real thick, dense scrub is what they need. And often where you've got nesting turtle dove, you'll have nesting nightingale as well, of which we have quite a lot of territories here at Old Park. So turtle doves will be using the scrub in a slightly different way. They'll be slightly higher, whereas nightingales will be on the floor. But it's lovely to come somewhere where you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to encounter both species if you come at the right time of the year. So you'll have the turtle doves purring and you'll have the nightingales in full song. So nesting habitat is really good here for turtle doves. The other thing that Old Park is really good for is their foraging habitat. So turtle doves are quite a small, dainty bird. They've got short legs and they feed exclusively on seed. And it's the seed of annual arable plants that they like to feed on. And because Old Park in lots of places is on quite acidic soil, the sward is quite low, it's quite open, and that's exactly where turtle doves like to forage. So it's great that we've got that foraging habitat for them, because all the science is showing us this lack of availability of food is what's really driving their decline. So when we look at turtle doves breeding ecology in the 1960s, they would be having typically 3 broods in a season. When we look at that more in recent times, that's really dropped off. So what's kind of happening is turtle doves are a migratory species, so they all winter in sub-Saharan Africa, make this epic journey to the breeding grounds here in the UK. And what's happening is they're not finding that food that they need to get them into breeding condition. And so they're having a much shorter breeding window as a result. What's really nice here at Old Park is there's definitely an abundance of food here for them. And on top of that, we're working with the golf club that are doing supplementary feeding as well to provide food at that kind of, where you've got a bit of a hunger gap at the start of the breeding season in late April. So they've got the food, they've got the nesting, and the other thing they need is a fresh water source. So when the adults feed the young turtle doves, they produce a crop milk. So they'll mix the seed with water and regurgitate that back to the young. And we've got new ponds that have gone in around the area as well. So they've got all the provisions that they need. With the supplementary feeding areas, we use trail cameras to help monitor them. So we'll have images that we can go through. And we've had some really good results. We've seen up to 10 turtle doves on one occasion on a supplementary feed area here at Old Park. To see 10 together, I mean, it doesn't sound like a big number, but that's quite significant. And what's really nice, you know, Old Park is very much the core of the population, but what we're trying to do is work across the landscape here, so working with local farmers in the area as well. So most farms that we work with, and it is largely farmers that we work with on the project, they'll typically have, you know, a pair of turtle doves, sometimes 2 pairs. So to have, you know, 5 pairs in an area like this is quite unheard of. So we know we've got a really healthy, thriving population here, which is just wonderful. We're trying to connect the dots because, you know, we've got the population here at Old Park, we've got populations elsewhere in East Kent, and we need to kind of connect those dots together. That's the key thing, really. What's really nice here at Old Park is in most years we do actually see juvenile turtle doves as well, which, you know, that's what it's all about, you know, that breeding success, seeing the next generation. And again, that's something that's just become quite rare these days, to see juvenile birds. We've seen several, you know, together on the wires, which is, yeah, absolutely incredible. So at the moment, the scrub at Old Park is absolutely optimal for turtle dove. So typically they like areas sort of minimum 3 metres wide by about 3 metres tall in terms of scrubby habitat, and most of this kind of fits the bill. But it will need management at some time, because if you leave scrub, it will eventually become overgrown, gappy, and then you lose that kind of dense connectivity within the scrub itself. So there will be an element of management that will be needed at some point if we're to retain turtle dove and nightingale. Turtle doves are quite an amazing species, because we know that they sort of tolerate each other a lot more than other birds. You know, some birds can get quite territorial and won't be happy about having too many males in their patch, but we know that in a lot of instances turtle doves can nest quite closely together. They live a bit more sort of in harmony. So somewhere like Old Park potentially could support a lot more turtle doves once we get that, you know, that population to really recover to where it needs to be. So we've seen changes in the hunting laws which have had a massive impact. So positively, yeah. So our British turtle doves are part of a flyaway population called the Western flyaway population, and it has been shown that the population has been subjected to unsustainable levels of hunting over the years. So close to 1 million birds were being shot in France, Spain and Portugal alone, and as you can imagine that's completely unsustainable for the whole flyaway population. So through an international species action plan that came out in 2018, that implemented a moratorium that came into play in 2021. And what's been incredible about that, so since 2021 the entire Western flyaway population has increased by 40%, which is quite incredible. So that expansion has happened at the core of the population. So when I think of turtle doves, I tend to think of a sun-loving species. So they do, you know, they do really well in places like the Med, so Spain, Portugal, and that's where we're starting to see that expansion happen. So we in the UK, we're at the very northern edge of their range, so it's probably going to take us a little while until we start to feel the effects of that increase in the Western flyaway, but it will happen. We'll start to feel the kind of off-spill effects of that hopefully very soon, and that's why, you know, places like Old Park are so important, because we're preparing ourselves for this kind of upsurge in numbers. So this is why habitats like this need protecting. Yeah, so Sturry Park is obviously somewhere we've got turtle doves, and we're also working with the farmer across the road actually as well, who's starting to do some habitat work for them as well. So it will just kind of mean that that population will be more resilient, better connected, which is really important, better kind of flow of genetics as well, which is always important as well. So the future, I think, for turtle dove in this part of Kent is looking really bright. You know, there's a real appetite to do lots of things for this species, and it's not just farmers and landowners. We've also got obviously we've got the golf club here at Canterbury. We've got people that have got, you know, big gardens that they're wanting to manage for nature. It just seems to be such an appetite to do things for turtle doves. And what's nice is you're able to bring people to sites like Old Park, and it inspires them to kind of want to do more for turtle doves potentially long term. We started working initially with the golf club about 4 years ago, so that was the first time that we did supplementary feeding, first time that we'd really done sort of breeding bird surveys as well. So we've not seen an increase as of yet, but it takes time to build a population, and I'm sure it will happen because there's some really good work that's going on here. So it will definitely come, I think. Definitely a stable population. I mean, that in itself is quite an achievement, because, you know, the trend has always been kind of going down, and I think we're starting to see early signs of that recovery somewhere like Old Park and potentially here in Kent. You know, the population isn't crashing, it seems to have stabilised now. So the next step is now that recovery, along that recovery curve. Turtle doves typically come back to the same area that they've bred. So they might not come back to the same bush or the same bit of scrub, but they'll come back to the rough kind of area that they've bred previously, yeah. And what's really important, just thinking about the youngsters, so we did some research a few years ago. So we fitted young turtle doves with GPS trackers, down in Essex, and what we found was that when the young turtle doves fledge, they won't move more than about 300 to 500 metres. So what that tells us is where you've got breeding turtle doves, you've got the good nesting habitat, you really need the foraging habitat and the fresh water source all within quite close proximity of each other. That's really key, and we've obviously got this here at Old Park.